this little thing that I'm talking about right now is all the different types of watercolor materials that I use. And one of the things that I use a lot is, believe it or not, just this praying watercolor, because the colors are so vibrant, they're so saturated that it's so much easier to use them and get the colors that you want. Now, I don't know that I would consider praying to be one of the most professional types of watercolors. I use them in all my classes. They're less expensive, but I just love the colors. You know, they have all the different wonderful colors that you need when you're painting, which this is basically all you need to get going. Anyway, just wanted to tell you about the praying. I also use Winsor Newton. Winsor Newton I've been using since, you know, in the very beginning when I first started painting watercolor, gosh, 20 some odd years ago. So, and you just squirt them out, and this is what I usually have. This is my palette. This is one of my old palettes, obviously. It has all kinds of stuff on it. But mainly it is Winsor Newton. I also have used Liquitex has watercolor. I find that the Liquitex watercolors, the actual colors do not blend the way you would think they should, so I don't use them as much. If I use the Liquitex watercolors, I usually use them straight out of the tube, whatever the color they are, and I don't mix them as much. Another thing that I've used for watercolor, or it's designer's gouache. It's more of a matte color. It's kind of in between a watercolor and an acrylic. That's just another, you know, thing that you can use is designer's gouache. It makes a very solid color, and it's not as liquidy. Another one that I use is a Dr. Martin's. Dr. Martin inks, wonderful because they have such bright colors. They are just totally saturated color. It's just the coolest thing in the whole world. But I think this is, I don't know what color this is. It looks like it's a black. So that's not really what the color that I want right now is a black. The other one is, you know, there are this is called Magic Watercolor. These are washable watercolors by Sargent Art. I use this a lot with my kids and then there's the Blick. They're liquid watercolors, and what happens with the liquid watercolors, when I do some of my other designing or printmaking, I use this because it just works really, really well with, you know, with the printmaking, you know, materials and stuff that I use. Now, some of the teachers that I know, what they do is they water it down for the kids. I never water down my watercolors. I feel like the watercolors should be vibrant, and I don't usually do that. So let me just show you what some of these are. Here's a scratch piece of paper. So this is, you know, very vibrant, inky type colors, and I just love them. This is such a pretty color. And then mixing them, that's another thing. Some of the watercolors mix well with each other and some do not. So you kind of have to play around to see, you know, which ones work with each other and which ones don't. I know that I bought some watercolors and they had some sort of gummy material in it, and so when I would mix them with watercolors, it actually would act like it had oil in it or something. It was very strange. So you have to be very careful to make sure that the majority of the time when you have watercolors, try to mix all of this type of watercolor together and not mix them with other types of materials. Like you wouldn't mix these with the gouache and vice versa. I mean, you can, but you have to experiment to see what really works. The other thing about watercolor is, before we get going, see how vibrant that is? Like, wow, it's so pretty. Before we get going and painting our spring painting here, we always have to make sure that all the watercolor is nice and damp. Now, there's different ways to do this. You could just get your brush, and usually I get a bigger brush, and you just kind of dip it in there. There's another way to do it is to get a sprayer, and I don't want to spray this, but then you just spray it, you know, so then if it's If it's in this type of situation where it's these little pods, then you need to get the pods wet. Now, if you do get the brush and you go in and you touch this and it has color on it, if you don't rinse your brush before you go in to something else, then you're going to get that blue into the yellow or into the white. See, the white has already been messed up. It's not even solid white anymore because you didn't clean the brush in between using the pod. You've got to make sure you clean your brushes really, really well. Another thing is, in most cases, I don't use white until the very, very, very end. I don't use white and mix it with red to get pink. Pink, the way you get pink is you get pink by adding water. You get light yellow by adding water. You get light green by adding water instead of adding white. White will make it look muddy and just doesn't look good. To our little drawing here, our little spring drawing. What I like to do as a designer is I like to go and pick out a palette. This is just something I got off the internet. You can go in and look for color schemes for spring. And so this is my guideline. This is the colors that I'm going to use in my illustration. You know, it looks like it's the whole rainbow, but it really isn't. I have a dark purple here that we're not going to use. I have red, but I really have pink. Well, I do over here. This is it's called Permanent Rose, and it is from Winsor Newton. And so the Permanent Rose is that pink. So I'm going to be using that Permanent Rose. I'll probably be using the red over here. So here we go. Let's see. In this drawing, the S is pink. So you know what? Maybe I'll just make the S pink in this one too. I love this rose color. It's called Permanent Rose, and it's by Winsor Newton. I'm thinking maybe I want to have a pattern in each one of them. So we could draw the pattern in with our pencil, or we can paint it in. And since this is the beginning, I think I'm just going to draw in patterns and things so then you know what to paint and what not to paint. So in here, I think I'm going to create some shapes within my S. Just to give this S a little decoration. Maybe I'll have a circle inside of it. I think I need to maybe put another one here, kind of going off the edge. And maybe one here that maybe the whole thing isn't showing. So where's my eraser? So we'll just erase that off the edge so then it looks like it's a real pattern. That's something that I have learned, that when you create a pattern, many times it goes off of the image, whatever the image is. Like if I'm going to do circles, let's do circles over here, or dots over here on the end. In order to do that, you're going to have to show that some of the circles actually go off the edge by doing a half circle around the edge of your drawing. I don't know if anybody's ever taught you that. It's kind of a fun thing. And then you could go back in and put some dots in here. But you want to make sure that some of them go off the edge, look like they go off the edge. They're just kind of half circles, they go off the edge. Then it makes it look more natural. So there are two patterns. We're going to do stripes here. The other ones, maybe we can do stripes or crisscrosses, or maybe on this one we will do, we could do like a, I don't know what these shapes are actually called. I don't know if I should know.
Maybe they're called scallops. I think they're called scallop.
I don't know, maybe that's a ruffle, maybe that's what it is. I don't know what you call this little. There. So let's see, and then we'll do the other ones, maybe stripes or crisscrosses or something else. Let's see. Okay, so like I said, I thought would be really fun is I love this permanent rose that they have, the Winsor Newton permanent rose. So this is going to be this S. I think it's just vibrant, pretty. Good grief, it's pretty. So remember that when you're painting in watercolor, that if there's something you want to leave white, it's something that you want white, you're not going to paint white, you're going to leave it white. Which is kind of the opposite of all the other types of paintings that you can do out there. Most of the time if you do acrylic, you put all your paintings on there, you put the dark on first, then you add the light. And you're doing the same thing if you have an oil painting. You always start with the dark. But here with watercolor, a lot of times you start with the white or the light. Whatever the lightest is, you paint it and then you got to leave it alone. And then you just add dark. But this I'm going to paint this guy all pink. Love this color. Oh, I went over that. Other thing that's really important is to paint from top to bottom because your hand's right here. So do top to bottom on these letters. And something else that's really good about painting in watercolor is you paint, every other letter, because if you don't, the water could possibly run into each other. I don't know if you've ever done the watercolor where you're painting something, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, one color ran into the other. You can't be impatient. You have to do one at a time, one letter at a time, one area at a time. We can't do these little bitty knobby things, these little, you can't do that until after everything dries. You got to make sure that everything dries first. Or all the colors will run into each other. So sometimes when you're going over the colors, it leaves little areas where you maybe want to go back over it again because you want it to be more smooth. Then just go back over it again. So I think that the next one should be green, but we're gonna skip the P and we're gonna go to the R, and I think what I'm gonna do with the R is start with yellow. And I'm going to do stripes on them. You know, start and stop right at the edge of your letter. So I'm starting and stopping right at the edge of the letter. Ooh, got a bunch of paint on that. And you have to watch how much paint you put on it, because sometimes it will drip. Go all the way down there. Okay, then you gotta let it dry.
While the yellow is drying, you want to skip the next letter, which is the I, which is a caret, and go on to the following letter, which is the N, because remember, we're trying to make sure that the colors don't run into each other.
Make sure you get all the little crummies off after you erase. Okay. So what I want to do is, okay, this right here is not touching that, so I can go on and paint it. And I'm going to take the yellow from my bucket of paint here. This is all Winsor Newton. And I'm going to add it right here because I want to make like a, I want to mix the green and the yellow so it's not green green. I mean, this green is green green. It's like a forest, it's not even a forest green. It's just like, it's a major green. I don't want major green. I want a combination of green and yellow. So it's a, I don't even know, chartreuse? What is that? What is the name of it? What's the name of that? I don't know. Okay, so, okay, it may have too much green in it now for me. So I'm gonna rinse my brush before I go back into my yellow. Always rinse your brush before you go back into your yellow, and then get a bunch of yellow and mix it. And that's the cream I want. I want to make sure I have enough of it. I want to make sure that I have enough of this green because I want to use it in more than one spot. Maybe I'll have to mix it more than once. Okay. So, let's see. This is going to be green. I'm going to stripe this green. Maybe 2 different colors of green would be fun. And let's see, what else do I want? Green. Maybe I want this guy to be green. What can I do with him? I don't want solid. I'm trying to do something other than solid. So maybe I'll do wavy lines. Haven't done that yet. I was gonna maybe put purple. Oh no, what color purple's over here? Let's see what purple we got here. Purple's kind of a bluish purple. So I thought we'd do crisscross. Purple and yellow. Okay, so let's see. I think what I want to do is do a darker green up here in between. A darker green and a lighter green. Got hair on that. Everything's starting to get a little dry. We'll go back in and right. So remember, we're trying to keep these colors because there isn't any red. We want to do the pink and the green, the yellow. So maybe we don't want red. Maybe pink again with yellow dots. But we got that here. So maybe yellow or maybe orange. We'll do orange. Maybe it's orange that I'm trying to go for. Let's go for orange. And then we need, let's see, orange. Maybe that'll be purple. This can be orange. Let's see, what goes with green? Pink goes with green. Pink and green. Let's see, how do I want to do this? Yellow and purple. Let's do orange and yellow. Let's do orange and, oh, this is going to be orange. Okay, so right here, see, this is a thing that happens. Okay, I want this to be orange because I want it to look like a carrot. So here I go. I went in here and I messed up. If you go quickly and put water on it, and then get a cloth, you can try to get it off of here. The thing about watercolor is that blotch is always going to be there. You can't really clean up mistakes. You have to kind of think about what you're going to do before you get started, or you have a big blotch because it looks like a mistake, right? So you have to be really careful and not let that happen. So I'm planning this out. I want this to look like a carrot, so I want that to be orange. So I'll have maybe 2 colors of orange, maybe. How about 2 colors of orange? We'll do this color of orange. Every other one. You want to put layers of color. Okay, so when you are painting in watercolor, if I go back with the other color right now, it'll bleed together. And I don't know if we want that or not, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I wait
Can you see how the two colors are blooming together, or blending together? I don't think that's really what I want.
What I need to do is let it all dry. See how it's bleeding in there? How this darker color is being sucked into the other color because that's where the water is. That's not really what I want. You can always go back and dab it just one time, and then you can go back over and paint over it. But now it's got to dry. When you paint in watercolor, you have to make sure that you only paint where you want to paint. You got to let it dry before you paint the other section. We didn't do that, and that's why it bled. So if you want that look, then obviously that's not what you want to do. You just go ahead and let it bleed together. Let the water rush into the other section. That's not what I want, though. That's not what the look is that I want. So, all right. So I'm thinking we need another pink or purple. So how about I make this guy purple, and then we can go back in with pink and green again back here. So this guy's going to be purple. So we're going to go back and try to find the purple that we were using. It's kind of a blue purple. It's not really purple. It doesn't have red in it. It has more blue in it than red. Maybe see, that's what that is. Because again, we're trying to stick with these colors. This is the color scheme we're going with. The yellow and the orange and the green. And I chose a different green. I chose, mainly this other green. So again, this right here is still wet, so I have to be very careful not to, because I don't want purple running into that orange over there. So you have to be very careful. Or just not paint next to it until it dries. And many times that's the way I do it, is I just don't paint it until it's dry. So this is really dark. In order to make it lighter, which is what my goal is to add water. You don't add white paint, you add water to it. And then we can spread this out, and the water is going to make it a lighter color. See how it's already starting to make it light right here? I want these to be circles. Kind of hard sometimes to do that with a brush. You have to be really careful to move the water around the polka dot. So I really want these to be cute little polka dots. So I go around, make sure that it's round, and then you have to control your brush. Control that brush. And it takes practice. It's not something that, oh my gosh, I sat down and I was perfect at. Nope. I've been painting for years. It takes discipline, and it takes practice. Whatever you do, you got to make sure that you practice what you're doing. And a good way to practice is say, okay, I am going to paint or draw for 20-30 minutes every single day. I am not going to skip a day. I'm going to give myself a challenge myself that I will draw and paint for 30 minutes a day. And do it for, some people do $100-day challenges. Some people do 30-day challenges. I usually do 30-day challenges. And why do I do that? Because it really challenges me. And, when you're working for your, You're not working for someone. You're working for yourself. You're working for your goal in life. That's just really the thing that will help you to really discipline yourself. It's just like exercising. You got to go, okay, I don't care what anybody says. I've got to make sure that I work really hard and exercise, for 30 days straight, or, for 6 days out of the week. And I don't know if you saw, this is really dark over here, so you can go into this and pick up paint and mix it with this, the water on this side of the N in the word spring, and move it around. So this is a little darker over here, and this is a little lighter over here, so then they kind of match. You want them to match, right? And my end got kind of, I don't know what happened there. But it'll be fine. Kind of like, I want my end to be a little bit bigger, I think. So I'm going to move it down a little. Okay, it's looking good. Looking good. Alright, there's the N. So let's go back over to the S. What goes good with the S? I was thinking about doing green, making these little things green. I think that's what I'll do. Go back into the green that we have been using, so then all the green looks the same. And while that's drying, sometimes if you do this, you won't get your hand in the wet paint. So I'm going to come over here, and a lot of times, remember, your hand might get wet, so you want to start at the top and work to the bottom so you don't get your hand in the paint. So the other thing I wanted was more of this green, this light green, because the light green is what this green is that we're trying to get here. So even though we're going to highlight with this other green, I'm trying to stick to this palette as much as I can stick to this palette. So I'm going back over and filling in the extra spots with the green that we're trying to go for. Like that. So while that's drying, we're going to go in and we're going to put the yellow in here that we have. So then it's a striped carrot. And you guys can paint your carrot any way you want a carrot. It doesn't really matter. But this is what I wanted. So this is what I was trying to do. Is paint the carrot. I want a striped carrot. I think that's fun. Okay, I got to go back over that, but not right now because this is wet. I have to wait for this right here to dry so then I can paint this right here. The top of that carrot will be painted the same color as this once the yellow right here dries. Okay, so I'm going to go this way. I got to figure out what else do I want to add into this green right here. Maybe some yellow. Maybe I'll do yellow and pink. That's kind of fun. But if I start painting like this, my hand may get into that wet paint, and you don't want that to happen. So you can move your paper so your hand won't get into the wet paint. And then you just go over exactly where you were, the other squiggle there. You're just going to kind of follow with your paintbrush where that other squiggle is. See how I'm doing that? Just kind of follow where that squiggle went. Follow where that squiggle went. And I'm trying to get right next to the green because I think I'm going to add another color to this letter. So let me just do this, and then I may add another color. I'm thinking about that. Maybe this goes a little further. Okay, so let's see. Back to the colors that we have. I need to add pink. I thought I'd do some pink over here. So what is another main color that we could add in here? We have pink and green. So we could have a green letter with pink spots. That's a good idea. I like that green. I don't know why I like that green. It's kind of a fun green, isn't it? So when we mix the green earlier, it's starting to, we're going to run out of it if we're going to do that whole image with this green. So what we might have to do is go into our dark green and get some extra dark green, mix it all up, mix it, mix it, mix it. Okay, now it's not the same color. Okay, rinse your brush, because the next thing you're going to do, rinse your brush, you're going to go into the yellow, and you don't want green on it or you'll mess up your yellow, and then you have to clean it, and it's like, oh, what a pain. Then, okay, so you're going to get all this yellow, and you're going to add that into it to get back to that original green. And it could be still a little darker than what we had originally. We still need more yellow. But before you stick this back in your yellow, you've got to make sure you rinse it really, really good. Rinse it really good. And then you go back into the yellow, because you don't want green in here or your yellow will not be a pure yellow anymore. And it's really hard to clean that up. So we get a whole bunch of paint, get a lot of saturated paint, and then go into this and mix it up to create more of that green, so we have plenty of the green to finish up the G in spring. All right, there's that color again. I've had many people talk to me about, well, how do you know how to mix it up? And sometimes you just have to eyeball it. Sometimes, for some reason, you just... sometimes you just have to eyeball it. You can't pick out the green. It's like, unless you are using only the ones that are in this palette or in a certain palette, you're going straight in and you're going straight in and you are picking up that exact color or that exact color. If you are mixing, you have to just kind of eyeball what you're doing, and you try to get back to the original color. And of course, I'm crazy about this color, so I know how to mix it, but hey, once you get to working on all this, it really does come more natural. It really does. So I want this whole thing to be green. So I'm going to go in here and go around these little scallops with my paintbrush, so they still look like scallops, and you have to be really slow. You got to take your time, go around the scallops. To grab that green, get it in here. All right. So once these scallops, and you're just going to go in and touch that color because it's already wet and it's going to all run together. See how I'm just touching the edge of what I already painted. and it's all going to run together. Now some of it, if it gets dry, you have to maybe go back over it. But you're going to go around the scallops slowly, and then you're going to get the rest of it and run all of that paint together. A lot of paint on here. So sometimes if you have too much paint on your brush, if you touch the paper, it'll just go blob down, and when that happens, then you go, oh no, you have a mistake. So you got to make sure that you don't have too much paint on your paintbrush, and that your paintbrush is small enough. You see how tiny this paintbrush is. It has a nice tip on it too. That's another thing I like about this one. It's real easy to get into the small areas, small places. See, that was a big blob. Bloop. And it went into the end. So I mean, I guess I can try to fix it by doing that. So you have to be careful how much water and how much paint you have on your brush when you first set it down. All right, here we go, getting closer. Okay, so while that's drying, we're gonna flip this over, and I'm gonna go into that orange and fix the orange real quick, because remember it wasn't dry. It's dry enough now. So see, it's still bled over, and the yellow is lighter than the orange, so you're gonna have a little bit of bleed right there in the drawing. Now you can go back over it with the yellow, you can go back over it with the orange. just to darken it up. That's the thing about watercolor. It's layer after layer after layer. Everything's layer after layer after layer. You layer another color on there, and you layer another color on there. You can, another coat, a different coat. You could do different colors. And I'll show you some of that next time. Okay, so in here, remember I wanted to add like some other color. These are too similar to me. I think that this needs to be more solid if this is going to stay that way. And I kind of like that. I think that's kind of fun. So I think what I want to go in here, or maybe I should do it the opposite. See, maybe I'll leave that the way it is and put pink in here. I'm trying to make one or the other needs to be more solid than what they are. So instead of just trying it on here, I think what I'm going to do, and this is what I do often, is I get a scrap piece of paper. This just has a bunch of scribbles on it. Maybe I'll get a different scrap piece of paper. Instead of just painting on there and going, I don't like it, the best thing to do is, okay, what did we do? We went in and we did stripes like this. All right? Yellow stripes like this. I want it to be dry. I don't think it's dry yet. Quite warm today, so it might dry faster than I'm thinking it will. Okay, and then we went in with purple. And then we did purple stripes. Okay, and I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to try something before we put it on here. I'm going to practice on here and see if I like it before I put it on here. I guess I could go on and try to practice with the other one too. Let's see, we had yellow squiggles. And then right next to the yellow squiggles was the green. It's really wet. I'm trying not to touch it. And then, let's see, there was another green squiggle. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry. And then we're going to paint pink on it once it's dry and see which way we like it the most. So I'm going to let that dry. Back to here. So this is now dry. We can now put dots in there, polka dots. So what color polka dots do we want to put in there? I thought we'd put pink in here. I'm trying to let that dry good. So maybe we won't do that. We'll do, let's see, what would go good with purple? I have purple and yellow there. We could do purple and green. We could do, oh, something else that I guess I should have told you from the very beginning. I already painted this once before. This is the one I painted before. And I really like all of this. I like the colors. I like the way I outlined it. I thought it was really fun. Also thought it was fun that I put this yellow behind here. But when I came over here, this was yellow. The end was yellow and red. So I thought I'd put orange behind it, and it didn't quite work. So this is a mess up in my mind. So what I'm doing is I'm doing it again. I'm doing it in a different color, but I want to put the yellow in the background just like this. So I don't want too much yellow in my design. I want some because I want it to all go together. But I don't want too much yellow because the background is going to be yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and make those dots yellow. And then this is going to be pink. Okay, so I'm going to go in and make the dots yellow. So I went back over and took some of the paint off of it because there's a lot of paint on my paintbrush. So when there's a lot of paint, I kind of like spread the paint out. So then that way, when I go back over it, it didn't go, bleh again. And then I have to clean it up. I mean, you can clean it up. It's not like you can't clean it up. But I just try to avoid that. It just takes time away from, oh, look at that. I didn't realize that even worked. I didn't know that was going to be next to each other. That's funny. See how I went over the edges, which I didn't mean to. And you can go back with a little bitty piece of paper and put it on your fingernail, you know, right on the fingernail or whatever, and go in and you can, you know, blot it a little right there, and then that way it kind of cleans up the little mistake. If you want to call it a mistake. I guess it doesn't have to be. See, I did it again. Woo, I even did it again. So I'm going to go back over that. Once I get these painted, that'll still be wet. Still be wet. Okay, so I'm going to put my paintbrush down. So this is, you know, just a little trick that I do. You get, this has to be dry, and then you're going to go in and you're just going to dab it, because you're using your fingernail just to kind of dab it. And another thing that you can do is once it's dry, you can go back over, since purple is darker than yellow. Once it's dry, got to make sure it's dry. You got to make sure it's dry. I'm telling it again, you got to make sure it's dry. You know, once it's dry, and go back in purple, and I can like go over the little areas, you know, that need to go over. But you got to let it dry. Let it dry. Let it dry. Okay, so this is dry. This is, we're working on this to be dry. Okay, I'm going to go back to my other piece of paper here. It's not completely dry, but I think it's dry enough to get an idea of what I'm thinking I want to do. So, okay, this is pink, and there's not any other pink, so I'm going to make that pink. I'm waiting for everything to dry so I can paint it. But I thought maybe this should be pink or have some pink in it. So I could do it this way, where I go into my pink, get my pink going here. It's really dry. Let's see. Get my little spray bottle and get my pink going. Okay, get my pink going. And maybe I just want to do a stripe. So let's say I'm going to have a stripe next to the yellow, not because the yellow doesn't stand out as much as the purple. So maybe I want to go in here and I'm just going to do an extra stripe in here. Now, the other thing that's going to happen when I do this is it's going to pick up some of that purple. So I may have to rinse, go back in to my pink to get fresh pink again, and then do a new stripe. I kind of like what this looks like, but remember, I'm picking up the purple, so you have to wash your brush before you go back into your pink, or you're going to put purple into your pink. And you don't want to get purple. You want to keep your pink pink and as clean as you can possibly keep it, you know. Same with the yellow. Every time you go mix something, you got to rinse your brush. Got to remember to rinse your brush. Okay, so I really like this. So I think this is what I want to do with the R. I'm going to see what it looks like to put wavy pink lines in this design, just for the heck of it. So I'm putting them, okay, the green is there, yellow, green, I'm going to do pink in between. That's how I'm doing it. I'm going to do yellow, green, I'm going to do pink in between the yellow and the green like that. And then I miss one, and then I go again. I kind of like that too, but I think I'm going to go with this for the R at this time, and maybe I'll use this another day. Isn't that fun? Here we go. So I got to make sure that my pink is really, really nice and clean You got to keep it clean. So here I go. So I'm going to do pink in between the yellow lines. Oh, it's about to drip. So sometimes you have to, like, you know, if you have too much on there, you can go over and kind of do your brush, you know, rake your brush across the side. If you have too much paint on there and it's drippy, you just do that. You get a little bit off of it, and then it's more, you can control it more. Oh no, what did I just do? Okay, here we go. So what happened was, for some reason, I got pink on this. I do not want pink on that. So I got a wet cloth, and I'm trying to get the pink off of it. So that's a way you clean it up. But the other thing about it is the cloth that you're using needs to be really clean. Otherwise, if it has a color on it, if it has red or blue, that red or blue is going to come off on your page. Oh, I cleaned it up. I don't know if you saw that. Cleaned it up. It was awesome. Okay, so now, what was I doing? Come on, Karen, come on, Karen, do it right. Okay, so I have too much paint. I'm going to rake it over the edge, and now I'm going to put pink in between the yellow lines. Okay, so this line right here was really light pink. So I'm actually going to try to go back over the same line and kind of darken these lines up just a tad. See, that one's really light too. And of course this one was really dark. So I'll go back over it again. Okay, and so the difference between this and what we just saw a minute ago is the purple is really dry, and so it's not picking up the purple that was picked up in the other design. If you look at this other design, you can tell that it was pink and then it became purple because these lines are still a little wet, which kind of is a fun idea. But I had already painted it and it's already dry. So let me finish painting the pink strips and stripes in here in between the yellow lines. Let's see. It needs to go over. This is not that dark either. And the other thing, you gotta make sure you get it all the way to the edge. We're gonna do some edging later because it's kind of hard to read. Oh, I need another yellow line right there. Cool. We'll put one in a minute. So got to make sure that you don't go over the P because the P doesn't have pink in it. You have to be really careful. Watch where your pencil lines are. Now remember, the pencil lines are really light, so sometimes you might miss them. Have to be really careful. Okay, that's looking really fun. Really like the way it turned out. Now what happened here? It's like it needs extra pink and extra yellow or something. That yellow line's really small. Okay, so I need a couple of extra yellow lines. Now, if the colors don't touch, like they don't, there's white in between them, I can go back and add a yellow line without touching that pink. Because remember, the pink's nice and wet, and you don't want to touch it because then the two colors will bleed together, or the two colors will run together, and you don't want them to run together. Or I don't. I mean, sometimes you do. I don't. And in this design anyway. So let's see, do I need to add, it's almost as if you need pink right there. And then, you know, I'm looking at the purple. I may need to add a couple of purple lines. I may add a couple of purple lines. I haven't decided. Okay. So, what am I doing? I think the pink. I think some of the pink lines need to be a little darker. So that's another thing. If you think something needs to be darker, you just go over it again. It makes it darker. Watercolor is all about layering. You're going to layer stuff. Once it's dry, then you can put another coat on it. You can do a little more to it if you want to do a little more to it. You're layering, you're putting more and more color onto it. Well, that's kind of fun, I think. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to finish up this part of it, the words, by adding pink to the outside of this G. And then in my other one, I put in a little flower. I think that little flower is really cute. So I may add a flower. We may add a flower to this design. Wouldn't that be fun? So first of all, I'm going to go in and work on the pink. Now remember, you want to start inside and work your way out. So you wouldn't start here. You're going to start here. So then your hand can rest on, next to this design. And there's a lot of paint on there. I can see it's about to drip. Ah, don't let it drip. Now that everything is nice and dry, my thought was, going back to my original painting, I really like the yellow that is behind everything. I didn't do exactly the same as I did before, but that's okay. I really like what I have. I really like the combination. Oh, that's right. I was going to put a flower in there. Since we only have one piece of purple right here, I think we need to add more purple over here to balance out. And since this is so pink, I was going to add maybe a flower or something in here or over here. I don't know, how big do I want this to be? So I'm going to do a purple flower there. I'm going to put another pink flower here. Now, I know many people are, they're more comfortable using a pencil. There's nothing wrong with using a pencil, but remember, when you use a pencil, just like we said before, you need to draw real lightly, okay? You got to draw lightly. If you draw really hard and press down, you can't erase it. If you can't erase it, you're going to have that on your page. So you don't want that. See? So whatever you do, make sure you draw lightly. So then you can come back and you can erase erase the pencil marks. Here you can't erase the pencil marks because you've pressed too hard on the paper. Okay, enough of that. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to put a little flower here. I think that's fun, and I'm going to put a flower here. It is spring. It would be fun to have flowers on here, right? So this is going to be a purple flower. And once again, I'm going to erase the pencil line a little before I get started. I can still see the design, but it won't be so hard to erase later when I paint over it. All right, here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the purple. And remember, I'm going to start, if I'm right-handed, I want to start over the left and work my way this way so my hand doesn't get in the paint. So here we go. We're going to do this, going to be purple. I have a little purple. I want a little purple flower on here. All right, so here's my little purple flower. And over here I was going to do a pink flower. We're going to let it dry. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to put something different in the center, maybe a yellow, or maybe not. I don't know. What do I want to put there? So over here we're going to do a pink flower just to add more pink to our design. Okay, and as a designer, the reason why I added pink over here is because this is pink, and this will balance all of the artwork. It'll balance the color. You want to balance, make sure that there's a balance in your color. There is pink here, but I still think it needed a little more pink just to kind of balance out the color. So there's my little pink flower. My little purple flower, and I don't know if you noticed right here, this kind of needed to be cleaned up just a little bit. I kind of went over the edge, and then when you do that, you need to go and kind of spread this out so it doesn't have a big line on it. So you kind of have a line on it. You kind of spread that out so then there's not a big line. There you go. And I think in here there's like a little bit of line. Let's kind of fill this in to make it look a little more smooth. All right, what else do we need to clean up here before we start the outline? Okay, now there's two different ways we can outline. We can outline with paint. This is the way I did here, is outline with paint. And since I don't really know if I want to outline with paint or do something different, I think what I'm going to do is practice on this one, since this one's messed up and I really don't care for it that much. I think I'm going to practice on this one with black ink and see if I want to outline and do details and stuff with black ink. So that's our next step. While this is drying, I think I'm going to do that. There was another little place that was purple that I wanted to fix. If you remember when we were painting the yellow dots, it kind of went over a little bit here. Ooh, that's really dark. So remember, if it's dark, you add water, and then you kind of wipe some of it off, because it's really dark. I didn't mean it to get that dark. But what the deal is you're just trying to clean that up. Woo, now we got to even it out. Even out the color. And that kind of needs to go over that a little. Kind of clean this up a little up here. Alright, it looks a little better. Okay, so while that's drying, since this is the one I really like, I'm going to put it over here to dry. I'm going to bring this one in, because this is the one I didn't really care for. And I'm going to get a black ink, pens out. All right, so I have all these different types of ink pens. This is a watercolor ink pen. It's really cool. It has two different tips, okay, which is really fun. But if I use this watercolor pen on a painting, and then I put watercolor on top of it, this is what's going to happen. Let's say this is I'm going to outline this, kind of a fun paint. That's kind of fun, but then I want to go back and remember we were going to put yellow around the outside, and I go in here and decide to put yellow around the outside. Oops. What happens? Ooh, that's really, need more water. What happens? Whoa! What happened there? Because it's a watercolor pen. Oh my gosh, now look at the yellow was bleeding and mixed in here, and now my yellow isn't as yellow as I want it to be. So that's what you have to be really careful about. Watercolor pencils are really cool. Watercolor pencils and pens are really cool. But if you want to do something where you want to outline something and you don't want this type of thing to happen, then what you're going to need to do is use a Sharpie. There's different types of Sharpies. I mean, Sharpie's gone crazy with all of their products, which is just dynamite. So let's see. I'm going to go in here and let's say I'm going to create a P, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to paint it with that same paintbrush with the yellow. Let's see what happens. Well, I touched the color of black and it didn't do anything because it's a Sharpie. So maybe that's what I want to do when I outline everything. Or maybe I need to go in here and create this outline, and then I can go back once everything is dry. I can go back with my, either my Sharpie and go back over my lines with my Sharpie, which this is a really fine Sharpie. It's really skinny. We could do all kinds of fun things. You could outline everything or not. You could do little dashes so it looks like it's been sewn together. See how this looks like it's being sewn together? It's stitched maybe. So there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do. With pen and ink after everything is dry. So there you go. Your carrot could be sewn onto this piece of paper. There's the stitches. Or we could go back with this really cool paintbrush looking pen, and we could go in here and do thick and thin types of drawing. It really depends on what you want to do. It could be thin, it could be thick. I don't know. Let's see. I got these new ones. I'm not really sure what these are. Let's open them up. Wow, they do not want you to open this up. All right, let's see what these are. Oh, these are tiny, itty bitty tiny. This is a itty bitty tiny. want to start over here, maybe go around this. So of course you could do this after the fact. If they're Sharpie, then you could actually do all of your drawings first and then go back over to all the drawings first in this permanent ink and then paint. Like we did here. We could go in and create this carrot again. And let's see, let's create this carrot again. And then I could still go in and put in these little stitches. I could even put in the stripes for the different colors. All right. Then I can go back and paint the yellow right up on top. A lot of paint on this. And the other thing that happens is if you paint, if you draw then paint, the paint will be on top of your drawing, on top of the black ink. So if you want it really clean, then you'll want to paint first and then put, the Sharpie marker on top. So let me finish this to show you the difference. Oh, wait a minute. I know. I used this over here, didn't I? I used this one. Obviously, I'm trying to paint this really quickly. The colors are kind of bleeding into each other, or the colors are kind of combining. The colors are, I don't know how to say that. Anyway, so you see the difference between if you paint first and then add the black, or if you add the black and then paint on top. Because when you paint on top, what happens is you paint on top of the black lines, and they're not as sharp. All right, so I need to decide what I'm going to do. I think I like the small lines the best. I really like the small Sharpie lines the best. I guess you don't have to, everything doesn't have to be outlined. Now I'm doing this really quick just to see what I like. you don't have to do it that quick. I don't want it to look sloppy, you know, but I just, you know, I want to look and see, what do I like? Do I like the black outline? Do I want to leave it plain? Do I want to do a combination? I really like this look. This is really a fun look. So can I go in and maybe add some of this here? Would that work? Okay, if it's outlined, it kind of doesn't work, does it? Doesn't look right, does it? But you never know until you try it. All right. I do believe that it would be good to outline the letters. I think they stand out better, don't they? Yeah, I think they stand out a lot better. And that way you can like put little, oh, we could do all kinds of stuff then. We could actually go in and create more design if you want. You could do that. Put little curly cues in the circles. Well, that's kind of fun. That adds to it. All right, we're back. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next. I think what I want to do next is we want to put the background in there. Oh, and I'm going to paint the center of the yellow. I'm going to put yellow in the center of our little flowers here. So let me do that first so that can start drying. Yikes. Okay. So I'm going to put a little yellow here, a little yellow here. Okay. All right, and then what I want to do is I'm going to outline the whole project, the whole thing, where it's going to have a yellow, it's going to have like a yellow, I guess, bubble around it. I don't even know how to pronounce, I don't even know how to tell you what I really want. It's like, it's going to have a yellow outline around it, a lot like our other image here. See how I followed around the outside of each letter? And that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do for this also. Right, we're going to start here and go around. It's too close. It's too close. We'll go in here. And you know, all artists aren't perfect. They don't just sit down and just make it perfect the first time. So it's okay to erase. There's nothing wrong with erasing. As long as you don't erase like a million times. You just do something and erase and do something and erase. Then you're just, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, I think I want all that yellow. All right. So now we're going to do the outside is going to be yellow. All right, it looks like we have the background. So after it dries, we'll put the details in it, which is the black details that the black outlines and all the details. And there you go. Okay, it's dry, and now that I'm looking at it and looking at the other one, the thing that's really kind of bothering me is the carrot right here. The eye and spring, it has too much yellow. So I think what I'm going to do is, even though I'm trying to stick with this color scheme, which I am, the color scheme is in here, I still want to go in, and I think I want to do something with the yellow so it's not yellow. Either make it red or make it more orange. I don't know, it's kind of bugging me right now. So I think what I'm going to do is go in and add more orange and maybe even a little bit of red, which is not normally what I would do. But there's too much. Yeah, see, this is a different color of orange, maybe a little darker, which would be good. Kind of mix that in with the yellow. And then I think I am going to come back with a red, or let's see, what other color do we have? We have purple, we have green. I don't think green stripes would work. You just can't hardly see it. So I think I'm going to go back and add a little red just to make it a darker. It just needs to be darker. It's not working for me being yellow, and the background being yellow. You know, background yellow, this is yellow. Yeah, it didn't work. And that's okay. You can go in and change it. Nothing wrong with changing your mind. See, I know I did that hole. It's too wet. So I'm going to let it dry, and then I'll work on it a little more. So while I'm waiting for it to dry, I think I need to go in now and, okay. So I'm going to start over here, and I really like to do some outlining and some detail work. And I'm going to use my Sharpie marker. So I don't know if you saw right here, somehow I got there's a little mess up. So I'm going to try to fix it with a tiny bit of water, and you kind of wipe it off a little. I don't know when that happened, but it was still a little damp, and I was able to wipe it off a little. like right here. Wipe it off a little. And it's got to dry some more, and then we can go back in and finish it up. Be patient and let it dry. You've got to be patient and let it dry. Otherwise you have little mess ups all over the place because you're trying to work too fast. So let it dry and we'll come back. All right, we're back again. Let's get this done. What we haven't done yet is get my eraser, and we want to go through and we want to erase everything that we can that we see. You know, what pencil lines do we see? We want to try to erase them, get them off of here. Clean up our project here. Now, this is a good example. If you paint over your pencil lines, this is what happens: is you can't erase them. So when you draw out your design, make sure you draw really, really lightly. Do not press down on your pencil, so then you can have a chance to erase all the pencil lines. I want to make sure we get all the crummies off of it. That's what I call them, little crummies from the eraser. Get all the little crummies off of there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, remember what we're doing is we're going to go through and we're creating outlines, or we're going to define. You're going to go through and define, you know, the different letters and everything. So that's what we're doing with the black marker. And again, I'm using a Sharpie marker. There are all kinds of other markers that you can use. Sharpie comes in different sizes, larger point and smaller point. So it depends on what you like to use. If you want a lot of detail, you're going to want to do this with a very small point. So I think something else I'm going to do is maybe add a little bit of extra design on some of these areas, just to like curly cues, or maybe, I don't know, this P, what can we do to this to make it a little bit better? Maybe even do like a drop shadow and then put in like some sort of drop shadow. Oh, that's kind of fun. I think I'll do this down here too. Let's see. Do it like that. Like that. Make it more like a 3D type. That's fun. That's different. I gotta do it up here too. Make sure you do it everywhere if you're going to do that. So now looking at all this, I like all these fun shapes around the outside, And I thought I was going to like that, but I kind of don't know if I do. I'm thinking, do I want to fill that in? Maybe not. Maybe I'll just go in with the black and kind of define it. Maybe that's what I want to do. Yeah, that's not bad. I like that. That works. So I don't know if you remember, we had a little mess up right here. So it's lighter right there with the yellow. So what I'm going to do is go back, now that I have permanent marker on there, I'm going to go back and add some yellow. Just to finish that up. And I think we're done. It looks pretty good. It wouldn't hurt to do a little touch up here and there. Or maybe I didn't go to the edge with the pen. And clean it up a little. There's not a lot that needs to be done. I do see pencil lines, and that's where, you know, I drew too hard. That's not a good thing. You have to be really careful with a pencil and do really light pencil marks. Okay, we're done.